Thanks, Kate. And hi, everybody. It's really great to be here. We're really pleased to be invited and have the opportunity to share this with you. And it's also been, all the presentations that have come before us have been really wonderful. Ours is a little bit different, but also connects to many of the themes that have been called out already. So we'll do our best to connect them as well. So just to introduce ourselves a little bit more. I'll be sharing this presentation today with Amber Stanley. So Amber is a senior UX designer and researcher. And I'm Marie Truelove. I'm a senior product manager and also the head of the product management capability at Data61, which is part of the CSIRO, which I'll introduce in a moment. So in this presentation, we're not only going to talk a little bit about spatial digital twin, but because of our capability expertise, we're going to talk about how we help research and technology teams where we work translate their research, great research and technology into use cases that solve real problems for users in the market. So first up, for those who maybe not from Australia, we're from the CSIRO, or CSIRO as we call it, which is Australia's national science agency. And I've already called out that Amber and I aren't scientists, but we certainly have a lot of them and technologists. And we're going to talk a little bit today about that. But Amber and I work almost exclusively on the TERIA program and apply our capabilities to that program. And the TERIA program has been a real leader in technology and collaboration that has enabled spatial digital twin and open data platforms for government, research and the not-for-profit sector for many years now, since 2014, and spatial digital twin more specifically since 2018. And some of the platforms and projects that we have contributed to and continue to contribute to include the National Map with Geoscience Australia, Digital Twin Victoria platform with the Victorian Government, and New South Wales Spatial Digital Twin Visualisation Service. Connecting to Narelle's presentation this morning, you might have seen some of our work there. And our technology includes an open source core, which is an open source library called TERIA.js that has enabled a really active community of organisations globally. Maybe some of you know it. And it's helped those organisations progress their own open data and spatial digital twin ambitions. And on this slide are just some of the examples of organisations in our community that we know have used TERIA.js over the years. And there's more on that on TERIA.js, obviously on GitHub, which is the home of our repository. And we'd just love to call out today that we're really, if you are an open source adopter of ours, we're looking to really have some engagement coming up in the coming months. And we'd love to hear from you about your experiences with that open source library of ours. But today we're going to talk about our early adopter program with some industry participants, and I'm going to hand over to Amber here just to continue for a bit.
Thanks, Marie, and hi everyone. It's really great to be here, and yeah, I'm looking forward to sort of taking you through our journey. So basically, the early adopter program was a way for CSIRO to collaborate with industry partners, developing specific industry spatial digital twin use cases. Our goal was basically to understand key industries' needs to help shape TERIA for these sectors and enhance our roadmap for a sustainable future product. And this program so far has been a really great way to work with industry and allow for a rapid exchange of ideas and knowledge. And our team have found this incredibly rewarding, and I've personally really enjoyed getting to know these participants and their organisations and their vision for digital twins and tools in their daily workflows. So CSIRO's mission is to solve challenges to benefit all sectors of the economy. Although we've had the privilege of working with several state governments and their digital twin programs, we also have the goal to work with industry and local government to deeply understand their challenges and opportunities so we can create value for them. And the TERIA Early Adopter Program was designed to do just this. So this is an overview of what the program looked like from the perspective of an industry early adopter customer. So we had our own time and cost constraints. So we wanted to come up with a way to essentially map out every step of the journey for this early adopter program so it can be as efficient as possible and we can get the insights that we need. And it's also a positive experience for those early adopters. So having a look at the stages, we started off with an expression of interest stage. And that's where we put a call out via LinkedIn to just basically get expressions of interest to see if people wanted to participate in our early adopter program. And then once we had those expressions of interest, we went through them and, organised interviews and, got talking to them to sort of understand their digital twin goals and how well they sort of aligned with ours and whether it'd be a good fit to collaborate for the early adopter program. And then once we had our participants, the next thing we did was connect them with our team. And that was the idea behind that was to help them get their proof of concept up and running on our Terrier digital twin platform as quickly as possible. And then once that was done, it was followed by a period of out in the wild. So our early adopter participants could, test their proof of concept with their customers. And we're now in the stage where we're wrapping up that period and we're re-engaging those early adopter participants to see, how we did, how was the process, what worked well, what didn't. And all of that feedback and insight will go into a validated product roadmap, which will identify the challenges and opportunities to come for our product. So our 600 industry participants are companies based in Southeast Queensland, Sydney, Melbourne and Adelaide. They include 1 electrical network operator, 5 consultancies with between 20 and 1,600 employees offering a range of services. The digital twin products are in the energy, infrastructure, horticulture, commercial property development, quantity surveying fields. And use cases include site optioneering and feasibility studies, assessing the impact of different designs, and project communications and providing collaborative access to data assets. We also have a secondary goal for the early adopter program. Because we work in a unique program within CSIRO, focused on developing pathways for adoption of our research and technologies into the world, we felt that we should capture the learnings of this process so other product teams can benefit from our experience and basically do it in a way that's more efficient based on our learnings. And this has led us to the development of an early adopter playbook, a step-by-step guide for product teams looking to engage industry early adopters to validate their minimum viable products and inform their roadmap to get there. And basically it includes information, resources, templates to help product teams quickly understand what's involved, plan resources and run a successful early adopter program efficiently, and get crucial customer and market insights they need while meeting CSIRO's high standards of human research, ethics, legal, privacy and security. And basically define and collect success metrics that investors care about to increase their chances of investment and ultimately continued innovation and impact. So we're also in the process of testing that with the other product teams, just to ensure that it's easy to follow and effective. We're also looking to trial that with other organisations outside of CSIRO and who could also potentially benefit from that playbook. And with that, I'll hand you over to Marie.
Thanks, Amber. So now we've introduced the early adopter program, which isn't exactly what you might expect at a spatial digital twin conference, but we wanted to share some of the unique ways that we've approached working on really specific use cases with you, and we hope that was interesting. But now I'm going to switch gears a little bit and share some early insights from the setup stage, which was completed in December with our participants. And I thought to focus those related on the big data challenges and opportunities that we have discovered. I won't be exhaustive or specific. We'll keep it really general and just present some of the bigger themes that have emerged on multiple projects. So not all of them, but multiple. The first is data sharing is hard to do, which is probably no surprise to anybody, but I just wanted to say it. And it's shared. It's no matter what sector of the economy you come from. So whether you're industry, research, where we sit, and government, it's hard. And in general, most of our participants really underestimated the challenges they might face when it came to sharing data outside their organisation, even with us. And some needed to change the subject of their project to be able to participate in the EAP. And just to give some context, our setup period was, within 3 months. And so, some organisations really struggled to understand and achieve that goal of being able to share the data that they had intended for the original use case in that 3-month period, just to give it a timeline. Data sovereignty was generally only kind of considered by most when we asked the question. And the answer was based on whether the data that we were sharing or was the subject of a project that was already in the public domain. So, for example, was the building something that the designs were already in the public domain, or was the building already built, as an example. So to be more specific there, the use case is we're provided with a data set. It could be a building model. We might want to store it, use a commercially available service to host it in the cloud. That cloud service might be in a US-based firm. Is that possible? And so when the answer to that question was often not guided by, an existing policy within the organisation, like I said, it was based on that common sense approach. Is the data already in the public domain? And finally, we found some of the technical teams had limited solutions already in place, highly technical teams, but they were just that idea of sharing data outside the organisation and having easy access and skills to utilise cloud infrastructure to do so might not be there in place. And again, that's just time and another barrier that or challenge that these organisations faced. The second one that we observed coming from an open data background, it's a space that we've been in for many years, is that awareness and utilisation of data from external sources, outside the project or outside the organisation was quite low for some participants. And this was an opportunity we were keen to explore if it could bring value to their projects, particularly as they're in that planning, optioneering, feasibility stage. Where it can bring us a lot of value. So the key question is that we got when we posed that as a question is, what data do we already have available for the site of the project? What gaps do you need to fill to make decisions? And the really big themes of interest here are, what existing rights exist on the potential site that's being explored? What's its use? What's the infrastructure on site or connecting to enable transport, for example? Its physical description, like geology, and the other one was the really long-term climate-related risks, weather patterns, for example, that this site might be subject to. And they're very generic and were applicable to all of the projects, I would say. As many in the audience would know, in Australia, you can build a really reasonable picture, can be established on these themes from open data from state and territory governments and the Australian government. But the discoverability and availability as a data service can really vary across the jurisdictions. And just to call out, as Amber highlighted, the participants were in their offices in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, but only half the projects were in their home states. And half of them were in regional and remote areas. So you might be in an office in Sydney doing a feasibility study of a site in remote Western Australia. So the ability to be able to search data, not just within your jurisdiction, but across the whole country, was a really important thing to be able to do. So the next one is that nearly all the projects were 3D data projects. So in the design stage, the interest was placing their projects within that rich 3D context. They're really keen to explore what the geospatial data that could bring to bear to their project to bring it to life. And so it was sought by all, even for the remotest of locations. So the little video I just showed of you is from a Google photorealistic 3D tiles for Darwin, but we did have requests in remote parts of the country. 3D imagery was most interest, and 3D buildings, which is exactly the same sort of journey that we've been on with governments, for example. They are the two sort of data sets that people are interested to explore when they're first exploring spatial digital twin. And Google photorealistic 3D tiles was sought out, I think mainly driven by their announcements late last year, at the same time that we were doing the setup of the projects. But it is interesting to sort of note the rapid changes in the adoption of those data sets and interests in them. So, and looking forward to projects in the development stage, participants wanted to really understand what data might be available to determine impacts on the timelines and therefore costs and risks to their projects. So the asks there were weather forecasts, other construction projects in the vicinity. This was a really big one. What other projects might affect the ability to get stuff on site, and therefore in the costing design stage, affect costs. Utilities, parking, transport, pedestrian levels were all in the immediate vicinity of the project. And many of these data sets are commercial, as many would be aware, or from local government, which is an even greater range of data availability and discoverability. For example, one of our projects was in the City of Melbourne, and I've got a screenshot on the right there of just the open data page catalogue from the City of Melbourne. It's quite extensive. People were blown away about how much data they could bring to their project. Where others, we were comparing in, say, regional South Australia or Western Australia or even New South Wales, Victoria, there just wasn't those kinds of data sets available. And we're no stranger at Terria to receiving 3D models that aren't georeferenced. And this trend really did continue in the EAP. But given the two themes that I've called out already, highlighted, the status quo, if the status quo is projects aren't being shared or designs from projects aren't being shared externally from the project, or you're not bringing in 3D data, it makes sense that you want to work in project space, because that's the space and the sort of you're going to work in moving into the construction stage. The designs really only need to exist in your own standalone world. So the motivation for change here will probably only come if the opportunity of having connected projects actually provides value. And that's a real hypothesis we're testing now as we progress through the next stages. In the meantime, we used both foundational 2D and 3D data from governments to position it relatively. Imagery plays a big part here, both 2D and 3D, so it all comes together in 3D. And perhaps in the future, we'll see publication of authoritative set of models for these purposes to support that, bringing it all together with an authoritative base, in addition to the coordinate system and datums that we adopt. And where's the ground? I've certainly also talked about DEMS in the past. For those who've seen my presentations, where's the ground? Again, really obvious in 3D. It's foundational in every sense of the word for all projects. All of our projects required a better resolution DEM than available in the global models, not just for visualization purposes, not just so that your trees and buildings weren't floating, but as a foundational layer for analytics such as hydrology. And one of our case studies was around visibility studies. So our participants are mostly capturing their own DEMs for these smaller projects or using external sources such as those from government. And for those in Australia, Elvis from Geoscience Australia was certainly well known within this cohort, and we supported our participants to leverage that great resource from Geoscience Australia. So the next sort of gears is, but the EAP, so I've talked a lot about data, and so you might think that participants were just interested in the data. They were also interested in really the digital transformation opportunity. Not just all our participants were motivated to test the value of digital transformation or a digital twin transformation and its capabilities might unlock for their business. Again, not exhaustive. We're still in the process of synthesizing all the insights that we've gathered on the EAP, but just some highlights that I thought I might share with you to step through this slide. So many of the participants came with the goal to really test data from external sources, so that's something that was up front. And others, it was us introducing that idea, and then we dug into that. All of them wanted to test 3D. We learned that some of our participants were collecting lots of 3D data like LiDAR for their projects to do the analytics and the sort of decision support that they provide to their clients. But perhaps weren't using that 3D data for visualization and engagement and communication of their projects. So they're interested in what 3D could do for them. And then others, it was more what extra attribution, or if I added, for example, cost or risk data to the models that I'm already creating, can I deliver more value? And how would a digital delivery of our project, as opposed to PDF reports, be received by my clients? And even how would we do that internally? And then the final kind of theme there, they really wanted to test broader access to project data. What would that actually mean for us and our clients? And would it actually work? Or is there still more work to be done? And I've already highlighted many of the challenges that we identified. The probably only extra one is that everyone's challenged by tooling. There's so much tooling with so many different data sets. So how do we make that simpler? And just the investment required for innovation and transformation projects in industry is a challenge. So in the next EAP stage, we are really validating, shifting from those challenges and goals into what's the value that we've managed to achieve together. Did the projects enable them, or can they see a future where it will provide better advice and better decisions? So like I said, many of our projects were in that optioneering stage or feasibility stage. If they had more data available, then would it actually reduce costs down the track? We've all seen figures in Australia, cost blowouts on infrastructure projects last year was $32 billion. If we had more data up front, would that help at least better scope projects? Productivity efficiency gains through new digital workflows, new and differentiated service offering through client satisfaction, and uplifting our own digital twin capabilities within our organisation. All of these are hypotheses we're testing now with our participants and in this final stage of the EAP. So I suppose the key takeaways, just to wrap up, that we'd like to leave you with is that I suppose the key one for me is data challenges aren't sector dependent. They are shared, because I know they frustrate everybody. I've been working in data for a long time. It's challenging and it takes time. It requires a lot of governance. People say it's all about the people, but there are a lot of technical issues as well. So it's all of those together, and there's a lot of work over time that to kind of address those challenges. There's a shared interest in what opportunities addressing these challenges combined with digital transformation might unlock, I suppose is key across all sectors that we've worked with. Our EAP approach, which we shared, Amber shared, is informing a playbook of best practice product and design that we are sharing across CSIRO as a way to approach to test and in a really human-centered design way, our technologies to create a more sustainable and innovative future. And our EAP is still in progress, so we really hope to share more details with, of course, our participants' approval soon. We'd like to give detailed use cases, for example, and if we present later in the year, perhaps even co-present with some of our participants so you can hear it from their perspective more specifically rather than our kind of general high-level overview insights at this stage. So I just want to acknowledge all our participants and thank them for participating. We're still going, so I really appreciate them. This experience has been really positive for us and really accelerated our understanding of how TERIA, the work that we've done in governments all these years and in the research sector and not-for-profit, and how it might help support digital twin adoptness and readiness in industry participants as well. So I think that's my last slide. Just to finish up, this is Amber and my email. If you feel we're emailing, do reach out on LinkedIn. We're both there as well. And there's more information on our website. And like I said, for our open source community, if you're listening today, we do plan to do engagement over the coming weeks and months, but don't wait, do reach out to us if you are interested to hear more what that's about as well. So thank you.
Thanks.
I'll stop sharing.
Thanks, Marie. Thanks, Amber. Great presentation as always, and really technology that's the backbone of the digital twin community here in Australia. So great to see this EAP program. I'll ask people to put their hand up if they have a question. But while people are getting started, I'll ask the first one. Look, this is a great program, definitely a deep understanding of the technical users. When I watched the UK presentations earlier this week, there was a big focus on how the person on the street will end up engaging with digital twin and digital twin community. Just interested in how you fit that into this type of program.
Great question. I can't see anybody. I've somehow messed up Zoom. Amber, did you want to take the lead on that one first, or will I try and work out what I'm doing? Or I can go first.
Amber is trying to unmute herself. I can
Sorry,
see.
sorry, I didn't realize I was on mute.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. Just thinking about some of the participants that we've been working with in those feasibility studies. One of their main goals is to, like, for example, engage non-technical people such as the community, so they can better understand what it is they're proposing and the impacts it's going to have on their community. And, you know, in the past, it's been extremely difficult because it's these are highly technical reports. They're often PDFs, very lengthy, and the community might not be able to fully understand the implications of those really technical reports. But by sharing, say, a digital twin, like a link, you can actually go in and explore it. It's almost like a universal language. Like, everyone knows what reality looks like.
Yeah.
And then they're suddenly exploring the reality of this project right next to their town from every angle. And it's one of Terrier's goals is to make that interaction as accessible and as easy as possible. And by doing that is, we're ensuring that we do a lot of user testing and understand if there's any blockers or pain points to exploring that digital twin. So yeah, so that's kind of where our sort of general users can fit in, like around sort of engaging the community around projects that affect them. And Marie, did you want to add to that?
No, that's terrific. And I think that, I mean, we've got lots of examples from our work with governments and research in the public, not-for-profit sector, but that's exactly a use case that came out in our projects in the infrastructure space or in the design and feasibility stuff. That community engagement was a big piece that they were exploring.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that answer. And I always think if we do our job right, the barriers to kind of getting involved should be really low. So that's all in the design. I'm going to hand over to Tori to ask a question. Thanks for putting your hand up, Tori.
Hey, thanks again. Love your work. You guys are really leading the way, I feel, globally in digital twin platforms. And on that note, have you guys collaborated internationally or learned from anyone internationally the use cases of the digital twin or the development of it?
Absolutely, Tori. So there's so many things we could say. 100% influenced by all the work happening internationally. Many on this call might know the influence that the work coming out of the Centre for Digital Build Britain had in Australia and on us. When the Gemini principles first came out, it really resonated with us. Coming from an open data background, it was just totally made sense. Federated approaches. So yeah, the other, we're part of the CSIRO. So through CSIRO, we've definitely connected with projects in Europe, and not just directly as the Terrier project with our spatial digital twin, but also supporting our researchers. So there's a project in the EU and with a small company called Memoris, and they're focused on that. And then there's our open source community has that global footprint. So our open source adopters, we're really, the USGS has used our projects, our UN has, all the way to startups in California and other parts of the world. And so there are, and we'd love to collaborate more, I suppose, particularly around digital twin. So it's been more about open data visualization, but how do we bring all that 3D data together? I think would be something that we'd be really happy to explore. So happy to talk more, Tori.
Oh, thank you for that. It's really cool to hear.